going to be speaking on the topic of net neutrality. My opponent's claim is without a policy of net neutrality, internet providers will restrict the internet services they provide to customers and corporations alike. Now, he based this argument on three main points. Net neutrality keeps the internet free. Without net neutrality, ISPs can cut out competition. And three, the lack of net neutrality policy can potentially cost more money for all internet services. So I'm going to start by addressing his first point, in that net neutrality keeps the internet free. He kind of explained what net neutrality is and defined why net neutrality would keep it free, because net neutrality is pretty much anyone can say anything on the internet. But he didn't really give any examples of how ISPs were actually restricting these. So I did some research on my own, and I found a very few number of cases where ISPs actually did this. One of which was Comcast back in 2007. Comcast put a block on sites such as BitTorrent and other, like, I guess, file sharing, torrenting websites, in an attempt to kind of slow down piracy. People got angry with this and rebelled, and the ban was lifted. However, this was back in 2007. As far as I can find, I didn't find anything since 2007 in which ISPs have actually restricted access to certain websites, which means the fact that we don't really have laws in place for net neutrality doesn't necessarily mean that ISPs were going to abuse that power that they have. Now, I'm going to go into a second claim, which was without net neutrality, ISPs can cut out competition. Now, he did mention a few things about how they can kind of choke them out by forcing them to pay fees and such. However, he didn't use any real evidence of this actually happening. According to a website I came across, it's called Wired. It's a tech magazine. They said the idea of granting fast lanes or quicker access to bigger sites like Google and Netflix is only because Google and Netflix require an astounding amount of bandwidth to be able to function as a company. Like, everyone uses Google, but not everyone uses the startup company's website. So Google has a ton of bandwidth because it needs it. You go to a startup company's website, 5, 10 people see it every day until it starts to grow. And so they don't really need the bandwidth that Google and those have. So his argument was kind of iffy about that subject. Now I'm going to go into his third point of the lack of net neutrality causes ISP users to pay a premium. Now, I do realize that this may be part of it. However, I feel like there's a bigger problem. The bigger problem is simply that most ISPs have become absolute juggernauts, and they can't really be stopped. There's probably 3 or 4 main ISPs in the United States today: Charter, AT&T, Verizon, and Comcast. These 4 can pretty much do whatever they want and charge whoever they want what they want, because they don't have no one else has anywhere to go to. And in fact, Charter is trying to buy out Time Warner right now, so that's even getting worse. And so, yeah, what I'm proposing is that the lack of a net neutrality policy isn't as big of a problem as my opponent makes it out to be.
Did you have an outline for me, Andrew? Thank you. Well, Andrew, I thought you did a very nice job identifying the topic, but even better than that, explaining the topic, kind of simplifying it, keeping track of what the issues were, and putting the advocate's argument into context so we have some idea about what's going on. The argument on the first point talks about the one example that you could find where Comcast attempted to do this and what their reason for doing it was. Now, in the historical context, you say they stopped trying to do that and there isn't any other examples on this. I do think you want to give us a source citation on the fact that they stopped doing this. I don't doubt that that's true, but it's probably in the article that you looked at there. So go ahead and cite that. And then the point that you make is that the advocate doesn't even cite that example. That was the only example that you could find. There's no other examples or illustrations cited by this. This is all speculative on the part of people who are concerned about these kinds of things. And by the way, I think you could add a little bit here. Who is it who's worried about this? Well, if we go by the one example that's been cited, it's people who want to commit piracy on the internet are all worried that we're going to lose net neutrality. I'm not exactly sure that that's a good source of credibility for the side that the advocate is talking about there. And I think there might be a way to kind of go after it that way. On the second point, I thought you had a very good argument kind of explaining again that it's all a hypothetical example, and your reasoning analysis is pretty good. Look, the other sites, Google and I forget if you mentioned YouTube or somebody else, they use a lot of bandwidth, and so of course that's why they need the bandwidth. And the startup companies, it's not that they're locked out, it's just that they don't have a high need for those kinds of things. Now you're dealing only with a hypothetical example also. I don't know if the advocate presented any actual illustrations or issues on this, but it probably wouldn't be hard to find somebody who's done some data on this. I mean, you dug up the article on Wired Magazine. I'm sure there are a lot of people who've been, this is an issue that's been going on for 7 or 8 years. People have been talking about this kind of thing, and so there's got to be some data out there. So although I think you've got a nice piece of reasoning that you're using here, I do think it's a little bit underdeveloped when it comes to your grounds, and you need to get some better evidence on that point. On the third point, same sort of thing. You get this explanation about how the ISPs, there are only a few of them, they're all juggernauts, they're buying each other up. So what does that mean to net neutrality? If we're worried about something concerning the ISPs having domination there, don't we have laws under which they could be prohibited from acting in this way? We've got antitrust laws that, wouldn't they apply in these particular situations? That seems like it would be a natural application. I don't know, but I don't know what I'm supposed to get from that last point. I did like the delivery very much. You speak to the audience. You seem to understand what the argument is that you're making, and that adds all kinds of credibility to you. Even though you don't have a lot of evidence backing you up, the fact is that you can tell us what the argument is that you're trying to make is a lot more persuasive. So I think you're doing the right thing that way. All right. Thank you.